What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we will be breaking down our must-add waiver wire additions moving into week 3 of the 2023 fantasy football season. If you guys are new here, this is all we do all year round. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way in. Other than that, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns pertaining to the 2023 fantasy football season, please let me know down below. I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video. All right, admittedly, I wasn't super excited about Zach Moss going into week 1, even though it was a great matchup against the Houston Texans. But at this point, with what we saw in terms of production out of Zach Moss, even with a steep matchup against the Baltimore Ravens in week 3, he needs to be a must-add. I mean, the overall volume, very good for Zach Moss. At 18 rushing attempts, he had 88 yards on the ground, 4.89 yards per carry, a touchdown, 4 targets, and 4 receptions. Deion Jackson did absolutely nothing in this game. Jake Funk did absolutely nothing in this game. It was all Zach Moss. He has to be a priority add moving forward. I say it all the time. Poor offenses still produce good fantasy players. And at the end of the day, RB1s on any team need to be rostered. If Zach Moss is still floating around in your league, he needs to be added moving into week 3. Okay, with Saquon Barkley expected to miss time, the reports indicating an ankle sprain for Saquon. Next up is Matt BREIDA, which isn't an extremely attractive option. He's got a bad matchup against San Francisco in week 3. But similar to Zach Moss, Matt BREIDA just simply needs to be rostered. He's the RB1 on the Giants. However much that means, I don't know. But at the end of the day, he needs to be rostered, and he's still a pretty solid back. Over the past 4 years, he's had 4.3 yards per carry. So Matt BREIDA, not extremely exciting. But, you know, Gary Brightwell, Eric Gray, you guys might not even know who they are. Those are the next running backs up on the roster for the Giants. So BREIDA, probably don't feel great starting him. But if you're struggling at running back, or simply, if you want an RB1 for the next couple weeks till Barkley's back to at least give a shot, he needs to be rostered as we approach week 3. All right, Josh Reynolds, simply put, moving forward, will be rostered in probably all formats after week 3. I mean, he has to be at this point in time. The Lions look like they have a competent passing attack. They're not just going to run the football purely throughout the season. Josh Reynolds has looked great through the first 2 weeks. Week 1, 12 points. Week 2, 23.6 points. Is he going to keep that up? I don't know, but I don't want to let someone else find out, and he's balling out all season. I mean, it looks like him and Jared Goff have kept that chemistry going back to their time with the Rams. Goff trusts him. He's part of the game plan on a week-to-week basis. He's getting looks all over the field. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 66 receiving yards, 13.2 yards per catch, and 2 touchdowns in week 2. He gets the Atlanta Falcons, the Green Bay Packers, the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Baltimore Ravens, then the Las Vegas Raiders before hitting a bye week. A lot of good matchups in there, a lot of good potential shootout games. Josh Reynolds, regardless of format, regardless of league size, needs to be rostered. He is a top priority add at the wide receiver position moving into week 3. All right, all the talk going into week 2 was about Puka, and I get it. He had a great game, but we kind of forgot about TUTU, or at least a lot of us did. And TUTU Atwell had a great game in week 2 after a solid performance in week 1 as well. At least 15 points in both of his first 2 games this year. 9 targets in week 2, 7 receptions, 77 receiving yards, 11 yards per catch. So he's hit double digits 2 weeks in a row. The Rams are at the Bengals, then at the Colts the next 2 weeks. Overall, I don't really care who they're facing. It looks like they're going to be slinging it all over the place. They look like a good team. I mean, I get it. You know, they're coming off of a loss now against San Francisco, but they played a lot better than a lot of people were expecting. They look like a competent offense. Matthew Stafford, for what he has, looks pretty good. Sean McVay is still a great offensive play caller. TUTU Atwell, in full PPR leagues especially, needs to be rostered moving into week 3. All right, admittedly, I did drop Sky Moore going into week 2, and I wasn't very excited about him moving forward. He didn't have the best volume in week 2 against Jacksonville. I don't know how consistent he's going to be. He's still rostered in a lot of leagues, but he also got dropped in a lot of leagues. So just go out and check. Sky Moore looks like a flyer flex option that I don't know if we're really going to trust throughout the season, but is worth throwing out there against soft matchups. He had 4 targets, 3 receptions, 70 receiving yards, and a touchdown, 23.3 yards per catch, and overall in full PPR, 16 fantasy points. So am I in love with Sky Moore? No. Do I think he could bring some inconsistency? Absolutely. Is he still going to be a player we can throw in the flex maybe in week 3 next week, this coming week against Chicago? Yeah. Maybe against Minnesota in week 5? Absolutely. So Sky Moore still worth rostering. Check if he's available as we approach week 3. All right, next up on the list, we've got Tank Dell. Didn't really do much whatsoever in week 1, but hey, this Texans passing offense looks pretty good for having a rookie quarterback in CJ Stroud. He had 240 passing yards in week 1, but most importantly, didn't really make a lot of mistakes. He had a fumble, and then in week 2, still another fumble. Like, we want to watch that. He should be able to improve upon that, but his passing numbers against the Colts, soft matchup, I get it. Nonetheless, were very, very good. 30 completions off of 47 attempts. They are letting CJ Stroud rip the football around the field. 384 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. 21 fantasy points for CJ Stroud. So, I mean, maybe a side note in like a deep super flex 2 quarterback league, maybe check if CJ Stroud is available. But going back to Tank Dell, we knew that there was a large possibility that this chemistry between the two started to show as the season went on. I mean, they both came into the league, obviously, as rookies, and Tank Dell showed out in week 2. Is he going to be incredibly consistent? I don't know, but he gets Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, and Atlanta in the next coming weeks. Relatively good matchups overall, and he had 10 targets, 7 receptions, 72 receiving yards, 10.2 yards per catch, and a touchdown, resulting in 20 fantasy points in full PPR in week 2. He's absolutely a player who, even if you're not starting right now in full PPR, needs to be rostered approaching week 3. All right, we're going to talk about a couple more rookie wide receivers. Let's start with Jayden Reed, who there was some buzz moving into week 2, knowing that Watson was likely going to be out, and then Aaron Jones was out, and he got some opportunities, and I would say he made the most of them. I mean, 8 targets, 4 receptions. We like to see 1 or 2 more of those balls brought in, but still 9.2 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns, 19 fantasy points total. Listen, some of his volume could be dependent on guys like Christian Watson and even Aaron Jones, but you have to think Jordan Love, who is throwing the football quite a bit right now, is going to continue to build this trust throughout the season. Reed was a good prospect coming out of college. He got opportunities in this game. Is he going to continue to get opportunities is going to be the question. Nonetheless, the 2 touchdowns really stand out. He should be rostered in deeper leagues and full PPR leagues moving into week 3. All right, another rookie wide receiver, Marvin Mims, absolutely balled out in week 2 against Washington, but I mean, maybe we don't want to get ultimately crazy excited because he only had 2 targets, nonetheless 2 receptions. I mean, to put things into perspective, he had 2 targets and 2 receptions in week 1 and at 2.9 fantasy points. 2 targets, 2 receptions in week 2, 20 fantasy points, 113 receiving yards and a touchdown. And he has looked good in the return game as well, if your league gives you points for that. But Marvin Mims, once again, you just have to think of these guys, like maybe they're not getting a ton of volume right away, but Russell Wilson is going to remember these little moments, those big plays, and continue to build that chemistry. It's only going to be time before he pops again. I mean, week 3 at Miami, week 4 at Chicago, these are great matchups. Marvin Mims, similar to Jayden Reed, needs to be rostered in deeper leagues and full PPR leagues, just because these rookie wide receivers, we see it year after year, they start to pop. I mean, we just talked about Christian Watson being a guy who we're relying on it in fantasy, One of these guys is going to step up. Marvin Mims should be rostered as we approach week 3. All right, another year, and here we are talking about Nelson Agholor for some reason. Do I love this ad? No, I don't really trust Nelson Agholor, but he had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 63 receiving yards, 12.6 yards per catch, a touchdown, and 17 fantasy points in week 2. He has a really, really soft matchup against the Indianapolis Colts in week 3, and Odell Beckham is hurt. Surprise, okay? Here we are, another year talking about Odell Beckham being hurt. He tweaked his ankle, so that's going to allow some opportunities for Nelson Agholor. I mean, we still got Bateman. Flowers has looked great. Mark Andrews is going to be involved as anyone. But Nelson Agholor is worth a shot due to the production in week 2, the fact that Odell is going to be out, and the fact that they have a soft matchup against the Colts in week 3. All right, so going into week 2, we had Zach Ertz on the QB/tight end streaming options video, and he performed pretty well in full PPR, 11.6 fantasy points, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 56 receiving yards, 9.3 yards per carry. And hey, at the end of the day, this Cardinals offense is okay, a lot better than we thought they would be. Two tough matchups coming up against Dallas and San Francisco, but we know they're going to be playing from behind. ERTZ should continue to see good volume as long as he can stay healthy. If you're struggling and you're in a full PPR league, Zach Ertz, absolutely worth a look moving into week 3. And that'll do it for today's video. If any players kind of arise in the Monday Night Football games, I will pin them in the comments down below, as well as any other players that I think you guys should monitor as well who maybe weren't as pressing for the video. So be sure to check that out as the next day or so goes by. But while you're down there, guys, drop me any comments, anything that you guys need pertaining to the 2023 fantasy football season. Who should you drop? Which one of these guys should you consider adding based on your roster? Starts, sits, trades, roster reviews, whatever you guys need. I am here for you guys as we approach week 3 of the fantasy season. And of course, if you guys did find the content helpful today or enjoyed it in any way, be sure to subscribe on the way out. This is all we do here all year round. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. So with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.